A very warm welcome to the Saturday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue with the video, be sure to like, share and subscribe. Coming up tomorrow, we have the live stream at approximately 4 p.m. So stay tuned for that. If you're available, if you're free, if you're bored, check that out and even ask me a question with regards to the weather. We will be looking at the global picture. We'll be looking at the UK, Ireland, Europe in terms of the winter just gone, the spring, the prospects of the rest of March, and even talking about the prospects of La Nina developing, the summer season coming up as well, the transition between El Nino into La Nina. Plenty to get your teeth into over the next 24 hours or so here in the channel, so be sure to subscribe if you have not already done so. Little surprise snow cover. Several people waking up to more than several people waking up to a covering of fresh snow as we step into the month of March. So this was some beautiful images captured by Liam James in Cumbria of a snow-covered hillscape, and it's typical, isn't it? Very little in the way of snow for most parts of the UK. In fact, during the course of the winter season, then we step into spring, and it feels like we're taking two steps back. So that was beautiful captures by Liam James on Twitter, and this was the scene, by the way, on the M4 M5 captured by Debbie Holland. And some very nasty conditions here, poor driving conditions, poor visibility, and looks as if the lane is down one lane due to snowfall, heavy snowfall at that, on the M5 M4 corridor. This was also the scene captured by Chris Cathcart in County Fermanagh, Northern Ireland. It looks as if his dogs are certainly enjoying that, what appears to be a few inches of snow on the ground. Dark skies representing some further heavy snowfall to come in that image. So thanks to Chris Cathcart for sharing these images out of the western side of Northern Ireland in recent days. So also remember, you can check out the March Outlook, which also includes the thoughts on the winter just gone, how March I think is going to pan out. So plenty of information and material there for you to digest and look at your leisure. The link will be in the description below, so you can check that out. So where are we going? It looks as if, based on the stratospheric warming situation that was seen a couple of weeks ago, there is an attempt at least to blocking within the high latitudes of the planet. You can see here that the North Atlantic Oscillation is expected to go weekly negative. The Arctic Oscillation is supposed to go even stronger in negative territory, and I've already explained in recent times with regards to the evolution of this overall pattern. But it's interesting nonetheless that as we step towards the upcoming work week, we have got a bit of an atmospheric fight going on between Atlantic and Scandinavian high pressure. Irma's trying to come in underneath the high building to the north of the UK and over Scandinavia. We've also got areas of low pressure that is trying to gang up over the Atlantic, trying to make an approach on the UK and Ireland, but it's coming up against resistance. And really the UK is in that battleground between air coming in from the west and air coming in from the east. This is the CFSV2 for the upcoming 7-day period. You can see the low centered in the means just south of Ireland here, just west of Wales and southwestern England. There's that block of high pressure over Scandinavia. But without that cold air mass and a direct link, in other words, the isobars stretched out connecting Eastern Europe with the UK, we're not going to get bitterly cold air, anything like we've seen March 2013 or March 2018. But you can see that the temperature anomalies for the upcoming 7-day period is, according to the CFSV2 at least, slightly warmer than average. And the reason why is if you've got a warmer Europe and an easterly wind, you can forget anything particularly cold. Back to the upper air dynamics here, and looking at week 2, you can see that the block strengthens to the north of the British Isles. Down to the south goes that area of low pressure. As the block develops and strengthens to the north, it sends the jet further south and you can see the 2 meter temperature anomalies representing warmer than average across the CFSV2 suite of models here. Looking at week 3, and there's no real change other than we are in a crossroads of low pressure and high pressure. Notice here to the north, east, southwest, we've got areas of troughiness, low pressure, and to the northwest and the southeast, we've got areas of high pressure. The UK is in a no man's land, and therefore, no real surprise, the CFSV2 continues with a warmer than average theme. Whether it is firmly warmer than average remains to be seen, but I do think that we are going to see spells of cooler air, something closer to average. But remember, the days are growing longer, nights growing shorter, and the sun strength is getting stronger also. This is the precipitation of the model. You can see slightly wet than average conditions actually across the UK, even parts of Ireland, drier than average across the northwest of Scotland, if you notice. Very wet compared to average southern Spain, southern France, in the northwestern Spain, northern Italy, into the Balkan region here for the upcoming 7-day period. Then we dry things out. As that block strengthens to the north, we're going to see the storm track getting further and further south displaced. Therefore, we're going to have wet conditions, but we're still struggling to get any precipitation into that drought region of Catalonia in the next wee while here. Week 3, which takes out to the second half of the month of March. I think we're going to have a drier than average March actually overall, and I think low pressure is going to be further south. High pressure is going to be dominant to the north of the UK overall. So looking at the big picture, you can see here that upcoming week 1, you can see that we've got strong blocking over into the north of the British Isles here, Scandinavia up towards Greenland here. There's that negative NAO signal. We've got a strong ridge of high pressure on the east coast of North America. Down goes that trough from the Canadian archipelago all the way down to California here, if you notice. And with this orientation of upper level high and low pressure, you've got higher pressure in the east, and therefore warmer than average temperatures. Into week 2 of the CFSV2, you can see that block becomes stronger. Notice here it's lifted north over eastern North America here, so we've got the negative now extending from California eastwards towards the Appalachians, possibly even reaching the east coast. Notice here that as the block strengthens to the north of the UK, we've actually pushed that low further south. But jet stream fairly weak, and it looks as if we're going to be in a bit of a no man's land actually, really, when it comes to the overall weather situation in the coming days here. Looking at the weather charts of the model, this is the battleground we're going to have to deal with in the coming week here regarding Scandinavian high versus low pressure over the Atlantic. This is the current view of the overview chart, GFS. You can see here 2 areas of low pressure, a rather odd little micro feature to the east of Aberdeen here. If you notice, the model earlier this morning was predicting snowfall in and around the Inverness area. Whether that materialised or not, I don't know, because I was in the land of Nod, having come off night shift last night. But you can see here this, if we look at the closer view, you can see that that area of low pressure is a rather odd little small feature here at 986 millibars. Quite a lot of convection on the north and western side of that system, if you notice. But then if we look back at the bigger picture, you can see what's taking place with regards to the overall situation. As we play through the loop, let's look at the 500 millibar anomalies, by the way, because this is quite interesting with regards to the behaviour of that building block to the north of the UK. So this is the here and now, as you can see, area of low pressure over the UK and Ireland. We've got the positive over the North Atlantic extending into Greenland. Also the high over Scandinavia. As we play through the next several days, notice here the 2 areas of high pressure join forces. Then it starts to force the areas of low pressure that try to start ganging up over the Atlantic. It comes up against the block to the east. So the traffic jam begins over the Atlantic, forces the deep into the trough, if you notice here in the means, and then it gets forced southwards. Notice here the high continues to strengthen during early and mid next week. to the north of the UK. If this was a midwinter pattern with colder in place, this certainly would be a good prospect for heavy snowfall, with the battleground of the Atlantic versus the continent and colder in place. But unfortunately, it's March and we have very little in the way of cold in our side of the pole. So you notice here that as we continue to play through the second half of next week, down south goes that trough into Iberia, enhancing rainfall and precipitation here. You would think this would be a cold situation, but I think it's unfortunately moderate, a modest chance of colder conditions during the course of next week, given the lack of colder in place over Europe here. So looking at the total accumulated precipitation actually off the model here, if we look at that, and it does refresh from it, and that's a big if, it would be rather interesting to see how much rainfall we get down into Iberia actually, which would hopefully be a good thing for some parts of this country as we step through the month of springtime, March, April, May. You're wanting to see some heavy rainfall down here to try and dampen those soils. The longer it stays dry during the late winter, early springtime, that has a negative impact in terms of increasing the strength of the high during the summertime and also the heat prospects as well. Unfortunately, the model is not going to play ball with me, so we'll go back to the overview chart and we'll look at the battle that is taking place. So as we play through the loop here, a couple of things to watch. Notice here that area of low pressure, the two areas of low pressure at that, now drifted to the northwest. We've got areas of low pressure trying to move to form and move eastwards over the Atlantic. Remember, we've got some fairly cold air getting drafted off Canada. So you notice here that the storm track looks as if it's becoming a little bit more active across the Atlantic. All the while, we've got building heights over Scandinavia and the Norwegian Sea. That is then going to start to act as a block. By the time we reach the middle portions of next week, you notice here as that area becomes piled up over the UK, it then forces the trough to then deepen over the Atlantic as the high develops. Now, this would, on the face of it, look as if it's a relatively cold pattern, but there's a couple of key things to remember. We've not got the isobars nice connected between Russia and the UK for one, so we're not going to be pulling anything in from far eastern Europe over the course of time. We do have an area of cold air, a little lobe of cold air that is going to try and drift westwards underneath the block, and therefore we may increase the chance of something a little bit colder towards the end of next week, but I'm not buying into that, to be honest. I just don't think the dynamics and the synoptic situation is correct for anything significant. But by the time we reach 6 a.m. Wednesday, you can see here that we've got low pressure over the Atlantic, high pressure over the continent, and we've got a battle between Atlantic and continental over the UK here. If we look at the 850 temperature anomaly chart here, you can see what I'm talking about. Some very cold air actually within that trough over the Atlantic. Notice here that we've got the milder underneath the block, and we've got some slightly colder air trying to run underneath that and move towards the UK and Ireland here. If we look at the actual 850 seen by the GFS, you can see what I'm talking about. There's a little lobe of cold air that's trying to move in, but it's all marginal. In fact, we've actually got, with the deepening of that trough over the Atlantic, with the southward displacement of that low down towards Iberia, you're actually pulling air in from northwest Africa and Spain. So we've actually got air trying to come in from the west, south, and east, all simultaneously. So you can see the confliction in the pattern. We've got a block, we've got a negative Arctic oscillation, we've got a negative North Atlantic oscillation, but without any real cold over Europe, it means nothing. If anything, it's just a nagging pattern as we limp towards the warmer times of the year. Like, share, and subscribe. See you hopefully at 4 p.m. tomorrow if you're free, and we will discuss things further here on the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.